The green and yellow giant more than just tractors. For generations, the sight of a green and yellow tractor has meant something. It's meant quality, American ingenuity, and a deep connection to the land. John Deere isn't just a company, it's an institution. Founded in 1837 by a blacksmith, it grew into a global powerhouse. We're talking about a leader in agricultural machinery, forestry equipment, and construction gear. Their equipment has helped feed the world and build our communities. It's a legacy built on steel, sweat, and a promise of reliability. John Deere resonates far beyond the cornfields of the Midwest. It's recognized globally, a symbol of durability and cutting-edge technology. They've consistently innovated, from the first self-scouring steel plow to today's GPS-guided combines. This commitment to advancement kept them at the top of their game. Think about the sheer scale of their operations, factories across the globe, a vast network of dealers, and a dedicated workforce. When the ground shifts, a new player in the field. The agricultural machinery market, long dominated by established names like John Deere, suddenly found itself in a state of flux. New competitors began to emerge, not from traditional manufacturing hubs in Europe or Asia, but from much closer to home. One of the most significant developments was the unexpected and rapid rise of manufacturers based in Mexico. These weren't small, niche operations, they were scaling up quickly, producing a range of agricultural equipment that directly competed with some of John Deere's core products. Their ability to enter the market with competitive pricing and increasingly reliable machinery started to turn heads. Farmers, always conscious of their bottom line, began to explore these new options. The Mexican manufacturing sector demonstrated a new level of sophistication and ambition. They weren't just assembling parts, they were developing their own designs, improving quality control, and building out distribution networks. For a company like John Deere, this new wave of competition presented a serious and immediate concern. The tariff tightrope. Good intentions, tough breaks. In recent years, U.S. trade policies saw some significant shakeups, particularly with the introduction of new tariffs on imported goods. The stated goal was to protect American industries, encourage domestic manufacturing, and level the playing field. However, the reality of global economics is rarely that simple. These tariffs, particularly on steel and other raw materials, had a ripple effect throughout the economy, and companies like John Deere, which rely on complex global supply chains, found themselves caught in the crossfire. John Deere, despite being an American icon, operates on a global scale. They source components from various countries and sell their machinery all over the world. When tariffs were imposed on imported steel and aluminum, it directly increased their cost of production. This put John Deere in a tough spot: either absorb the increased costs or pass those costs on to their customers. The tariffs represented a significant financial burden. For a company manufacturing heavy machinery, steel is a primary input. Even a small percentage increase in the cost of steel can translate into millions of dollars in added expenses. The tariff tightrope was a precarious one to walk, and the risk of a misstep was high for American manufacturers. South of the border, ahead of the curve, Mexico's tariff tango. While U.S. companies like John Deere were grappling with the increased costs imposed by American tariffs on imported materials, a different scenario was playing out south of the border. Mexican manufacturers found themselves in a surprisingly advantageous position. Many of the tariffs implemented by the U.S. were targeted at goods from specific countries, or were structured in ways that inadvertently benefited manufacturers in nations with certain trade agreements with the U.S., like Mexico. Mexican companies, often nimble and quick to adapt, leveraged these circumstances effectively. This tariff differential gave Mexican manufacturers a significant cost advantage. They could produce agricultural machinery using components or raw materials that were effectively cheaper for them than for their U.S. counterparts. This allowed them to offer their finished products in the U.S. market and globally at more competitive prices. When farmers are making big-ticket purchases like tractors or harvesters, even a relatively small price difference can be a major deciding factor. The result was a clear competitive edge for these rising Mexican companies. They could undercut the prices of established brands like John Deere. For John Deere, this meant facing competitors who had a built-in cost advantage. Empty seats and anxious towns, the real cost of change. Increased competition from tariff-advantaged Mexican manufacturers and higher domestic production costs due to U.S. tariffs began to take a toll on John Deere. Shrinking margins and tougher competition often force companies to make difficult decisions. These decisions frequently involve reducing operational expenses, often targeting labor costs. The pressure mounted, affecting not just the company's balance sheet, but the lives of its employees and their communities. One of the most painful repercussions was the impact on American jobs. John Deere faced production slowdowns and layoffs at their U.S. facilities. These weren't just numbers, these were real people with families to support. The uncertainty and job losses sent ripples of anxiety through these communities. The economic fallout extended beyond direct job losses at John Deere plants. Many smaller businesses, suppliers, and service providers depend on the economic activity generated by large manufacturers. The sight of empty workstations in a once bustling factory is a powerful symbol of these complex economic and political forces at play. School of Hard Knocks lessons from the global scramble. The challenges faced by John Deere in this shifting landscape offer some hard-earned lessons for any global business, big or small. First and foremost is the critical importance of agility and adaptability. Markets can change with bewildering speed, and companies that are too rigid in their strategies or too slow to react to new threats can quickly find themselves at a disadvantage. The rise of Mexican manufacturers wasn't on everyone's radar, which underscores the need for constant environmental scanning and a willingness to question old assumptions. Another key takeaway is the profound impact of trade policy. Businesses don't operate in a vacuum, they are subject to the winds of political and regulatory change. The John Deere situation demonstrates how tariffs and trade agreements can fundamentally alter the competitive landscape. This means companies need to not only understand current policies, but also anticipate potential shifts and develop contingency plans. Engaging with policymakers and advocating for a stable and predictable trade environment becomes crucial for long-term planning and investment. Furthermore, the story highlights the ever-present need for diversification in supply chains, in markets, and even in product offerings. When tariffs hit specific materials or trade disputes affect particular regions, diversified companies are better positioned to weather the storm. Resilience often comes from having multiple options. Steering a new course. What's next for the Deere? So, what can a giant like John Deere do to navigate these turbulent waters and steer towards a more stable future? It's not going to be easy, but this is a company with a long history of overcoming challenges. One crucial path forward involves a relentless focus on innovation. This could mean doubling down on precision agriculture technologies, autonomous vehicles, and data management services. By offering solutions that boost efficiency and productivity, they can justify premium pricing. Another avenue is a strategic reevaluation of their global supply chain. This might involve diversifying sourcing for critical components. It could also mean exploring more localized production in key international markets. Ultimately, recovery and future success for John Deere will likely depend on a combination of these strategies.